Elvis, can you hear me? Paint for us a picture of what's happening. Well, it seems to be quite noisy where Elvis is at, but of course protests are currently ongoing along the Matunda, along the highway there, of course, the Kitale-Eldoret highway, after police officer allegedly sodomized schoolboys in Matunda, Kakamega County. The angry mob is engaging police in running battles. They lit bonfires in the middle of the road, paralyzing transport for the better part of the morning. Of course, motorists plying that route are also stranded. We'll be following that conversation. And okay, I believe now Elvis can hear me. Elvis, can you hear me? What's happening? Elvis, can you hear me? All right, we will be going back to Elvis Koskei later, but to another developing story. Yesterday night, the head of the Public Service, Joseph Kinyua, announced changes in various portfolios, reassignments in the senior ranks of the executive. Now, to begin with, the State Departments of Mining and Petroleum have been merged. The following chief administrative secretaries have been appointed. We have Eric Simiyu under the Ministry of National Treasury and Planning, Jackson Akala under the Ministry of Labour and Social Protective, Lawrence Omuhaka under the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives. We also have Japhet Misheni, who is under the Ministry of State Law Office and the Department of Justice. Of course, different appointments were made there. We also saw a number of principal secretaries, that is 8, that were reassigned. We now want to have that conversation. And joining me via Zoom is Gabriel Muthuma, who is a political analyst. Thank you very much for making time to join us here on News Desk. Now, we have seen 8 new entrants to the new executive lineup, with pro-handshake leaders being termed as the biggest beneficiaries. Your thoughts about this?
Thanks for having me, and good afternoon. Well, yes, we saw the appointments, and as we read from the head of public service, Dr. Joseph Kinyua, what he really said was the changes were meant to foster operational efficiency and institutionalize, and expedite the implementation of various what you would call groundbreaking reforms, and what you would call what I'm thinking really why those changes were made is to ensure that when the president is leaving office, all his legacy projects will be done. So I think it is actually in line with introducing people who you think will align better with the functions within the various ministries, like what you've said about the Ministry of Mining, the State Department within Mining and Petroleum, that were merged to be one. That is one case. The other thing which actually stands out, you saw in education, where you initially had Madam Bonaya and CAS, Zach Kenodia, they were moved out, and who took their placement, the same office that was held by Professor Coletta Suda. In comes now somebody who I can almost tell was brought in to ensure that the new released CBC that we saw the president the other day at KICC unveiling, the person who comes in now to lead that department is none other than Madam Sarah Ruto. And Madam Sarah Ruto, as you know, she was actually the former chair now of KICD. So that just tells you that there is an element of operational efficiency that the head of state is looking. So that one does not surprise me at all. But when you talk about the gainers, the handshake candidates cannot go without saying, yeah, sometimes these appointments, yes, are indeed political. But to me, some of the people that came in are people who have actually have, a very level head when it comes to matters governance and policy. For instance, excuse me, you saw the coming in of our very good friend who is always coming to media houses and is able to articulate matters, none other than David Osiani now, who is the CAS industrialization. This, as you know, is a young man who has been in the advisory docket, the youth advisory docket to Honorable Raila Odinga. And this is somebody who's quite brilliant. I mean, he's, quite well educated, knows his thing around, a great policy maker. When it comes to governance, he is quite well endowed in that field as well. So as much as we would like to talk about the handshake gaining or the handshake not gaining, the primal thing that I look when it comes to matters, changes that were realized yesterday is, operationalizing and, making the ministries and these state departments to be efficient.
But even when we look at the changes, we have individuals such as Rachel Shebesh, who was the CAS of Youth and Gender Affairs, a position that has been taken by Lina Jebi Kilimo, if I'm not wrong. Their fate seems to be uncertain. There's no communication. So then what happens to them?
Indeed, as you point out, yes, correctly, there is that area of communication that never got. So we still do not know whether somebody like Rachel Shebesh is still in that docket or she isn't. So these are some of the things I think we are going to wait and see whether there's a communique that may follow or, other more realignments, are supposed to be coming. So to me, I think it's a matter of wait and see, but I can understand where you're coming from, and probably this is what many other Kenyans are asking. Is this the end of those people who never, whose dockets were given to other people? What happens to them now? That is just a matter of wait and see.
Even as we wait and see, this position of the chief administrative secretaries, it's not enshrined in the Constitution. Yes, Article 132, 2F does give the president the powers to appoint, but still, is it necessary?
For now, I think given the way things are going, there has been areas where the CASs have come in handy, mainly most of those that have a political background. Because remember, when we were being introduced to cabinet secretaries who are not politically inclined, they were not politicians, according to our constitution, which was a good thing. And I still maintain that is an amazing thing, because you have these cabinet secretaries just concentrating on deliverables. So many a times they would be required to go to parliament and answer things. And this is where I think the cabinet administrative secretaries play a very big role, because they can actually take over that mantle and allow the cabinet secretaries to continue with their duties. The other thing, as you saw, yes, many people actually mandated that those positions were going to be aligned politically. Now, there's really nothing wrong with that, as long as you have sober people who are going to drive the government's agenda forward. I really see no problem with that, even though they are not enshrined in our constitution. But there is an element that gives the president power to be able to anoint these CASs. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as they are able to do their duties, which is very well defined, if you look at various ministries and various state departments, you will see actually they are always there in parliament. When you go and CASs are invited and PSs and CSs are invited, you will always see them tag along. So I think it is not an office that lacks substance, if that would be your question. But then again, if you assign people who are not knowledgeable to such offices and they are not able to perform their duty, then I think they may actually be in a position to bring a lot of politics within the ministries. Just take the instance that I've given you. You will notice now that the Ministry of Education, which has actually received quite a substantial amount of change, we've seen the PS has actually, Belio Kipsang has been replaced with Dr. Julia Juan. Julius John. And you remember Julius John was still the CEO, I think, at KICD. So KICD has actually gotten a bigger pie, the Ministry of Education, primarily because of the CBC curriculum. So that one just tells you that alignment is right in place for them to be able to move in that particular direction. But again, to answer your question, I think from time to time, I know most of the CASs actually are given a political tagline, but most of the time they actually earn it.
Why I'm asking if it's necessary, we have ministries such as the Ministry of Health, which has 2 chief administrative secretaries. As a Kenyan, you're thinking about the wedge bill, which is projected to get to around $7.6 billion in the financial year 2019-2020. So then if you look at the wedge bill, what happens next?
Well, if you compare apples to apples, I think we are all of us, including yourself, any, taxpayer is concerned about the wage bill. But you see, if I always say, if the service commensurate, excuse me, if the service commensurate the work and the service itself, then you can always see that, it is a function that is in line because it is delivering a unique service. My worry, my concern, and I believe a concern to many other Kenyans, is bloating the government too much, or whether you look at it from the county point of view, and yet the services are not being rendered. Either the services that are being rendered are not of value, or they are of a lesser quality. That to me is why I get concerned. But on this one, I think the president has done quite well. Let's give credit where it is due. When you look at somebody like the CAS who was at the Ministry of Sports, Hassan Nur Hassan. He's quite a level-headed individual, and if you look at his contribution in the Ministry of Sports, it is amazing. He's been all over crisscrossing with the Cabinet Secretary, Amina Mohammed. They've been crisscrossing, and PS Joe Kudo, they've been crisscrossing the country to ensure that these stadiums are complete, before the president leaves office. So I know what you're talking about, and I'm mindful of the same, but where service really commensurate and it's in line with service delivery, then and we do not go to the extreme of bloating ministries, then I think it's quite in line with the directives that we've received as far as putting labor within the ministries are concerned.
All right, thank you very much, Gabriel Muthuma, who is a political analyst, for your insights on that particular conversation. Of course, yesterday we saw the head of public service, Joseph